Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money Podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Robert Niyazov on the line, and he's founder and CEO over at R&J Capital Group. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
All right, Robert. So I'm excited to get your input today. I know you've been in the mortgage business for a long time now, and I'm interested to get your take on what's going on in mortgages and the housing market. But maybe just before we get right into what's going on in the market today, and maybe some of the things that people need to know when they're applying for a mortgage, I think you have some valuable insight there. Let's go a little bit further into your background. So how did you get started in the business?
So I just want to tell you that I guess it was by accident. I studied mathematics in college, and then I did finance in graduate school, and I started working as an actuary. It was so related. And after a little bit, people were saying, "Look, you explain so well. Why don't you start working more with people if that's something you'd like to consider?" Because in the actuarial profession, I was mostly, dealing with which was nice, but I was dealing with my colleagues, sitting in front of a computer. Here I had an exposure, and I started doing mortgages, and I tried doing it initially on a part-time basis, and then I went full-time. I formed my company, and that's how it all started. I formed it in 2002, so we're in business for almost 20 years. It was an interesting switch. And when I studied mathematics, I did a lot of statistics and probability. So later in career, it helped me. Like now, I do a lot of analytic stuff. I analyze the mortgage market. I try to analyze the housing market, where it stands now. But yes, we are a full-service mortgage company. We help people get financing. And for sure, I'd like to break down the steps. If you have a particular question, certainly let's go through this.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go further into the process and what that looks like. So, what do people need to know when they're going to, apply for a mortgage? Like, tell us some of those steps.
Okay, so there are 4 elements, and I'll quickly go over each one of them. Let me just name them first. It's what we call employment, income, assets, and credit. So employment obviously means that, the banks are looking for you to have a stable job, that you are not kind of switching industries often, that you're not opening companies and closing companies. We'll talk more about self-employed people in a little bit. But generally, they want to see a stable employment. The second step is income. Banks will definitely verify how much income you're earning and if there is stability there as well. For example, let's just say the salary went down significantly, there'll definitely be a red flag raised, and they will be asked why. And if we can explain, sometimes they will say, "Sorry, we cannot do it." There are other alternatives, but that's separate. So income generally is required as well. The third and a very important element is credit. There is a credit history that's expected to be decent. And there's a credit scoring system. Anything Above 700 is considered to be good. Above 740 considered to be excellent. There is a possibility to get a mortgage, obviously, below 700. It will affect the rate. In most cases, it will affect the mortgage rate, but it's definitely not a deal breaker, as long as there are other things that are, in order. Now, things to look at, the credit history has to be established for 2 or 3 years with minimum 2 or 3, what we call credit lines. Line is a credit card, car that a person leases or finances. So if people have, let's say, just a person has just one credit card, it's probably not enough. For those listeners that are thinking about buying a home, I would definitely go and maybe open another one and keep it, don't close it for a few years. So that's how banks look at credit. And the last item on what banks are verifying is assets. So assets is, of course, money in the bank. The money has to be there. If it's not there and you're getting, gifts from family, they're acceptable as long as it can be documented. Anything that's coming to the bank account, if it's a large amount, and large amount means anything that's more than 50% of your salary, has to be sourced and documented from by a gift letter if it comes from a, let's say, a family member. And by the way, only a family member can give a gift. That's the only acceptable form. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the mortgage process. Now, as far as programs go, there are programs available for many programs available for first-time home buyers. There's something called FHA that's insured by the federal government, where people can get a mortgage with 3.5% rate. With 3.5% down payment. And with historically low rates, they have gone up a little bit, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes more. But they're still historically very low. It's definitely a good time for people to buy a home.
No, that's great, and I have to give you credit right there, Robert. You said as we opened up this interview that you're like, hey, you had a knack for explaining things and getting information to people in a very in a very clear manner. And I have to say, you explained the whole mortgage process and some of the main points in probably like 4 minutes just now. So that's amazing. You could tell you've been in this business for a long time, Robert.
I appreciate it, Adam. I appreciate it. Thank you. I come from a family of academics. I guess that's genetical.
That's awesome.
Both of my parents are teachers. So.
That's where you got it then, right there. Because I felt like you just took us all to school. So that being said, Robert, let's get into what you're seeing in the housing market, just overall, whether it's market or the mortgage market or housing overall. I mean, what kind of things are you seeing?
So. When it comes to housing market in the U.S. and we're, outside of metropolitan areas just for a minute. And what happened, let's just go back for a minute, right, pre-pandemic. If, you take us back to January, February of 2020 and even December of 2019. At that time, we had a very strong market. What does it mean? And what does it mean, a strong housing market? So the housing market is driven by demographics. It's how many people are going to enter or buy homes in the next few years. Now, as you know, millennials are, obviously getting older. Yes, they're still young, but they're getting older. There's family formation, and then they need a home. Whether it's a small home, a larger home, or an apartment, they need a home. They need to live somewhere. They need to raise kids at some point. Basically, the demographics, and that's all called housing fundamentals. So the fundamentals are very strong. The demographic is such that there are more than 73 million millennials. A lot of them will consider buying. So there's a great demand. So even pre-pandemic, we had great demand and not enough homes. And that the pandemic only exacerbated it. If you heard about it, housing was pretty much the brightest spot during, this whole, unfortunate situation with COVID. So why did it exacerbate the situation? Because obviously builders couldn't build, but people continued to get older, and kids were growing. They were now cramped in homes. They wanted larger homes. So that all created even more demand for housing. So at this point, because there's a lot of entrance into the housing market, there isn't enough homes. I believe the prices will continue rising. And I only wish that builders can build more entry-level homes in the United States to meet that demand. In addition to this, the mortgage rates are low. That also fuels, the buying activity. So, to answer your question, I believe for the next few years, we will continue to experience bidding wars for homes, and now, and there will be a lot of interest all over the United States. Even the metropolitan cities like New York and San Francisco will now start getting back people once we get, everybody gets vaccinated. The restaurants fully will open up, and the arenas for sporting events and such. And one last point, the interest rates, because of all of this go up, the interest rates are also kind of a function of what's happening in the economy. Once it opens up, the hotels will open up, the more people will get off unemployment, rates will naturally go up a little bit, which is not a worse thing. We kind of need to maybe, when rates go up, it cools off things a little bit, which is something we might need, in my opinion. So
no, that's,
I hope I didn't confuse. I hope I didn't confuse anyone there. And
no, you're on the money show. Everybody listening here, they're listening because they want to learn more about money, and because some people may be in the market. And speaking of being in the market overall, so Robert, if somebody is listening to this, final question, 2-part question. So if somebody's listening to this and they want more information on R&J Capital Group, question number 1, what's the right types of individuals or organizations that are typically a good fit to work with you in your company? And number 2, what's the best way for them to reach out and to learn more?
So anybody who is, when I said that if they, let's say they're buyers. So by the way, as a full service mortgage company, we can arrange, refinancing if they want to pull money out of the property, if they have enough equity and want to pull money out, or just refinance to a lower rate. So we do all of those. So again, as I told you earlier, it's a full service mortgage company, as well as purchase transactions. We'd like to buy and finance. Anybody who is pretty much, those 4 points, if they have a job, if they have, decent credit, if they saved up a little money and want to get into the house of their dreams, we can definitely help. In addition, for self-employed individuals, we have a different set of programs where they can document income alternatively. For example, their business bank statements, there's no tax return needed. It's a very popular program these days. So that's the answer to the first portion of your question. The second portion, we are everywhere on social media. Our website is getmemortgage.com, get GETME, and then word mortgage spelled out, MORTGAGE, getmemortgage.com, or our phone number is 718-520-7000, 718-520-7000. R&J Capital Group can also be easily found on Facebook or Instagram.
That's awesome. Well, Robert, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and all the great stuff that you're doing over at R&J Capital Group. Wish you much more continued success. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you learned a lot. If you did, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. We want you to be a return listener, have more great guests just like Robert coming up for you, and don't want you to miss any of that good stuff. And Robert, thanks again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Adam, I really appreciate the opportunity. Good luck to you as well. Thank you.